All right, so welcome everyone to the August Peninsula Clean Energy Board meeting. We have Chair DeGolia is on the Zoom with us. He's been traveling. And so just in order to facilitate the meeting, I'll go ahead and run it from here and he's going to participate from there. So welcome everyone. It's great to see everyone. We have a full house tonight, it looks like almost everyone here. So thanks for coming back. I will go ahead, Nellie, and ask for a roll call, please.
Sam Pass.
Yes, I'm here.
Sam
Here.
Yes.
Belmont.
Here, Julia.
Brisbane.
Here, Colleen Batten.
Burlingame.
Thomas Olson.
Tolna.
It's also.
Daly City.
Rod Bankwell.
East Palo Alto. Foster City.
Shannon.
Halfman Bay. Hillsborough. Los Banos.
Pollyanna's here.
Menlo Park.
Betsy Nash.
Millbrae. Seneca.
I do, yes, for the big stick.
12 Valley.
John House.
Redwood City.
Over with this.
San Bruno.
Marty Medina.
San Carlos. San Mateo. Emerald Springs. South San Francisco.
Jim Clement.
And Woodside.
All right, fantastic. Nellie, would you like to do the approved teleconference participation under AB 2449? Do we have anything or are we good?
We don't have any.
Okay, nothing good. All right, we will move on to public comment, please. So this is the time for any members of the public who have meant to make about something that's not on the agenda to raise their hand. We'll check the Zoom group here. Do we have any public comments? Nellie, anyone on?
Yeah, we have one the it's Leslie Watson, who was unable to get the agenda publicly posted, and so she's joining us as a member of the public.
Fantastic. Thank you, Leslie, for taking time from your business trip to join us. Really appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome. Okay, we need action to set the agenda and to approve the consent agenda items, please.
And before we go, a little announcement, place, attachment K. It was inadvertently left off of the agenda template, or this, it wasn't called attachment K at the time, but the information in this attachment, was part of the DEI policy that was approved back in October 2022, so we've all seen this before. And it was like I was private, but it is now posted online, that is here for any member of the public, and you all have a copy of it. As did people who participated in the
Super great. Thank you, Nellie, for that notification. We really appreciate your vigilance. Item number, so now we'll have the action to set the agenda and approve the consent. I think I have a motion. Was that me? Okay, motion by Verma.
Second.
We'll give it to the youngster over here. How's that? Second by Coleman. All those in favor?
Unfortunately, it's a roll
All
call
call vote, please.
because of the
Yeah.
local conference, sorry.
No worries. We're all
San
good.
Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Yes.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma,
Yes.
Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto.
Yes.
Foster City.
Yeah.
Halfman Bay, Hillsborough, Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae. Seneca,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you and motion passes.
Fantastic. Next we have chair report. Rick, I'm gonna let you handle that. I have nothing to report, but you may.
I don't have a report tonight.
Okay, great. We'll move on to item number 7, CEO report.
Great. Good evening, board members. I'm happy to report that.
Oh, I should actually ask if there was any public comment on item number 6, technically. Melanie, any public comment on chair report, even though there wasn't one? No. Okay, great. Nothing here.
And would you advance the slides, please? Just want to say good evening. I'm almost a full 2 months into my new role, and I'm pleased to report that things continue to go well. As far as I know, no major balls got dropped. There is something new to deal with every single day. So it's been interesting, and I continue to say that the staff group here is tremendous and things are going well. So thank you, and I do invite phone calls or emails or anytime you need anything, please let me know. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do, I think Nellie, you're gonna run the board survey results, correct? So I'll cue that up. So you guys might recall that about a week after I came into this position, we sent out a board survey that asked just for your feedback on a number of things, including these meetings, the level of detail, too little, too much, different reporting. We had a question about our retreat and the format of our retreat and date preferences, and it was a variety pack of what we hope is pretty much everything that touches your role with Peninsula Clean Energy. And in part, the food that you see here tonight is part of the results of that. So with that, Nellie, is there any way to make that larger?
Yes.
Thank you. I cannot see that. And maybe while we're saying this, hopefully you all got a chance to read my report. We've had a lot of feedback from board members and members of the public that we need to improve in particular our audio capacity. So Nellie and Cassius and team are on it, and we are making a number of improvements here in the coming months, I think, month or two.
I checked in with the contractor today and they don't have an exact timeline for us yet. They're still waiting for some audio visual equipment.
But we're on it. So we've heard you and we are gonna take care of it, okay? All right, so I'll run through these pretty quickly. So the first question we asked was, would you like to meet or talk with the CEO or the board chair, how often? And traditionally, as I understand it, there has been either lunch or some kind of meeting once a year with the CEO, plus going out and providing an update to your councils. So when we asked the question, 60% of you said, don't need a set schedule, as needed. So what we will do with that is that I would like to meet with those of you who I don't already know or have worked with, and we'll be working to set up lunches and meetings for that. And then we will plan to continue our annual roadshow to provide you an update on what's going on with PCE and the impacts that we're having in your community. So those will start up likely in October and run through the first half of next year. We'll chunk those out and make our way around to visit you. So thank you for your feedback on that. I should say that we received 15 responses total. So for those of you that responded in person. All right, so several months ago, we brought up this idea about having a board buddy program or a board mentor program, especially for new board members to be paired up with a more senior board member, just have someone to talk with and learn from and get some of the institutional memory and history. So a number of folks thought that was a good idea. There were 3 people that raised their hand to become mentors, so thank you for that. Those that said that they would like one, we will match you up. Most said, in general, you're okay. So for those that want it, we will make sure that we match you, okay? Next up. Please send me PCE's newsletter. So this is the newsletter that we send out every Friday afternoon. And it has, updated media links. It has different things that happen in the office during the week, different newsworthy things that, it's a little amalgamation every week. So people generally said that they like it and they would like to continue it weekly. So you will see that will land in your inbox Friday afternoon. Next up. Can you go down a little bit? In general, okay, this was a question about board meeting agendas and staff presentations. So the vast majority here, 9 out of the 15, said the board meetings are about right in terms of staff presentations and board meeting agendas. I think a couple of years ago, before my time, there may have been a discussion about trying very hard to keep this to a 2-hour meeting. And so we will certainly continue to honor that. and make sure that our staff presentations are tight and brief. And so we will ask that you just continue to read the memos because you will always get more detail on the memo than you will in the staff presentation. Next up. As time permits, I'm interested in, so we asked about educational segments. One of the things that we thought would be helpful is, as time permits, to take a 15-minute block of the agenda and talk about a specific item. So you might recall that recently we had a regionalization discussion and some follow-up about that. There were a number of topics that board members identified here that we will slot in throughout the year as time permits. So stay tuned for more of that. Should we serve food at board meetings? So you'll see that the vast majority said, yes, please, because I don't have time after work, between work and coming to a meeting. So tonight we're trying this approach out. I think it works well and hopefully you guys agree. So next time, don't worry about bringing snacks, come and have dinner with us. And thank you for your service. Next slide. In general, I think the written staff reports and the board packets are, so the vast majority are blue, which is just the right amount of information for the agenda presented. A while back, we had heard that there was too much material in the board packet to get through it all. So again, we really are working to make sure that we streamline the information that you need. Next up. I would like to receive PCE department updates. So this is where there's another change in practice. So you might recall that in every board packet, every department included a monthly report. Not much change on that. Sometimes metrics would change, hopefully in the up column in terms of uptake of programs. But staff came together to look at opportunities for streamlining. We recommended quarterly approach, and the executive committee agreed and the survey agreed that quarterly was gonna be okay. So starting October, I believe, we will have rotating reports. So you'll receive 2 each month instead of 7. Next month, there will be 2 more, then 2 more, and then repeating, so that 4 times a year, you'll receive an updated progress report from each department. We will also, of course, have our strategic plan update annually and then midpoint in April. So that was another opportunity to streamline. Next up, I'm almost done. This was another question about, should we go back to having our board retreats on Saturday? Or should we, continue it at the board meetings? Vast majority said, let's do a 3 to 4 hour retreat at a board meeting, in lieu of a board meeting. And so this is on the consent agenda, I believe, to have our board retreat this year on November 16th. That is the date in lieu of our regular date, which is Thanksgiving. And so I think we'll probably want to take a quick survey afterwards to make sure most of you can come. There are a couple of already identified that may not be able to, but that's an important meeting to attend. So we'll get back to you on that. But for right now, it's set at November 16th. And we will start early at 5:30. Okay, in terms of retreat content, so this 50% of the group said, I like a mix of reports, a strategic plan, as well as facilitated discussion about future strategy. So there was a discussion at the executive committee and an idea to take the strategic plan update and present that to you in October so that we can spend as much time as we need with it and then have more kind of future strategic discussion at the retreat. Because it just takes up too much time to try and do both. So that is the plan as of now, unless anybody objects. Next up, please add any other suggestions. Okay, so we took all of these suggestions to heart and we are going to continue to work on refinements. But I also just want to say, if you have any suggestions at all, please email me, give me a call, and we will be as responsive as we can. So there's that. Oh, that's before that. Next is going to be surplus funds ad hoc committee. If you can go to the next slide. So we had our second meeting. Thank you for those of you who are on the committee. Most of you were able to attend this meeting. It was on August 9th. We finished the staff presentations on customer composition. We had a discussion about rates. We had a discussion about programs, and we got some high-level feedback from Gwen on customer feedback. We spent the second half of the meeting focused on what should our funding allocation categories be, not so much specific, but as a way to kind of frame the discussion and have some organizing principles. So we talked about one category would be increasing reserves in days cash on hand. Second, increasing customer savings through either deeper discounts or rebate. Third is additional funding for customer programs, that would be residential, commercial, municipal. Fourth was funding for PCE sponsored local power projects. I think you all know that we have a 20 megawatt goal for local power by 2025. We're on our way to meeting that, but there are additional opportunities that may come before. And then we also discussed how school support might fit into that. So lots of good ideas were generated. Our next step is to put all of that together and kind of, for lack of a better term, create a menu based on what we heard from the board or the committee and staff. And then we will come to the next meeting on September 7th with some price tags on those options and then have further discussion, really aiming toward October and November to bring it back to the full board for adoption. So far, so good, I would say. Next up. This one was not in my report, but it's a new fun one to announce that the solar array is up on the building already. This is part of our GovPV or solar on public buildings program that we have. I believe there were, how many, 12 sites? And so San Carlos went first. They will go live on that system in November. That's the plan as of now. And the rest will then be following in the ensuing months. So we are underway delivering on the first cohort of projects. Next up, very soon actually, is to release the RFP for the second cohort of projects, which expands from 12 to 35. And so we move from 1.7 megawatts to potentially up to 8 megawatts of meeting that local power objective. Raquel is here if you have any questions later on. And then my last slide is just a reminder that we are still recruiting for a number of positions. We are close to hiring the regulatory analyst and the energy programs analyst. Those should be closing in another week. We've had good response for the COO and CFO roles. The initial vetting of those candidates is happening now. And so we will be moving into full interview process here in the coming month. So that's all moving ahead. And the last is just a reminder of our September meetings on the next slide. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sean. Does anyone have any questions or comments of Sean? Okay, please, Ray.
It's a little off topic, but is it possible here?
Or okay, great. And while we're working on the HVAC. Does anyone in the public comment? There we go. Put that on. Thanks, Sean. Are there any members of the public who have a question, comment on the CEO report? And Nellie, I'll wait a minute for you to look at that screen and take your time. Thanks. No. Yeah, please, Sean.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that online tonight, we have our newest staff member. I'd like to introduce her. Her name is Jaden Hannon. She is our account service specialist who joined us last week. She is replacing the role that was held by Shayna Barnes. Shayna moved over to our power services team. And so welcome aboard, Jane.
Okay, we're changing.
Jane, you want to wave up there in your little square, virtual square?
So we have her, Nellie? All right, okay, well, if she comes on, we'll take a look. Thank you very much. And next up on the agenda is the Citizens Advisory Committee report. I see Jennifer in here. Are you getting it? No, who's reading?
Hi.
Someone on?
Yes, good evening, Honorable Chair DeGolia and members of the board. I'm Kathleen Goforth. I'm a member of the Community Advisory Committee, and I'm filling in this evening for our chairperson, Cheryl Schaff, and Vice Chair Jason Mendelson, neither of whom could be here this evening. But Cheryl did write a report, and I will read the report that she's prepared. The CAC met Thursday, August 10th, and Vice Chair Jason Mendelson asked that staff responses to member questions be included in minutes to give members easy access to information. He also asked that staff notify members by email when slide decks for meetings are posted. Jason shared that the board reviewed each CAC 2022 work group report and approved updates to the 2023 work plan and to the CAC published objectives. He relayed the board's keen interest in and appreciation for the work of the CAC. Mehdi Shariari, Planning and Analytics Manager, updated us on the goal to deliver 100% renewable energy annually on a 99% time coincident basis by 2027 instead of 2025. Members discussed PCE's current electricity mix, including solar, wind, and other renewables during various days and hours of the year. And Mehdi explained that limited renewable energy resources is the main reason PCE cannot meet the goal until 2027. Members asked for a chance to have input on major changes to this strategic priority going forward. They also suggested that PCE promote this goal to consumer audiences as work progresses. Stephen Booker, committee member, reported on the first two meetings of the staff committee on budget surplus, as he is our CAC representative on that committee. So far, he said the committee has focused on PCE goals, customer feedback, and opportunities to expand energy programs. Jason Mendelson shared the scope of new working groups and invited everyone to join. Members eagerly signed up to work and to lead the working groups. Signups will continue, especially to include 6 members who were absent from that meeting. The committee unanimously re-elected Cheryl Schaff as chair and Jason Mendelson as vice chair. Vanessa Shin, community outreach specialist, reported that PCE discontinued both its refrigerator recycling program and residential solar plus storage program. Committee member Kathleen Goforth asked for information about alternative methods of refrigerant disposal. Committee member Gail Lee recommended SunShares for solar and storage residential installations. Kirsten Andrews Schwinn, senior manager of community relations, shared that PCE is working with community-based organizations to produce fall public engagement workshops and will collaborate with climate resilient communities on a Spanish language EV showcase. This completes the report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Kathleen. Do any of the board members have questions of CAC? All right. I'm going to open this to the public, and I have one quick update on something else that relates to CAC. So are there any members of the public who would like to speak?
Yes.
Okay, great. Please, thank you.
Rose?
Oh, you're asking me?
Your hand is raised. Did you want to provide public comment for the CAC item?
Yes. I wanted to provide public comment that there is a new wind turbine technology that has been designed. It was basically the next step beyond the 12 to 14 megawatt wind turbines that are being built for offshore use, which were designed by, which were a knockoff of the turbine that the guy I worked with showed in 2006. So that will be coming, and it'll be able to get more energy out of less wind, as well as lower cost to produce it. Also, we've got a proof of concept of something. So we've got a proof of concept of a solar thin film that is we believe is headed for 30, 40 or more % efficiency and very low cost. So I'll just put that in terms of you might still be able to pull it into 2025. Let's put it that way. But I appreciate the situation you're in, looking at the current commercial technology.
Thank you very much, Mark. That concludes. Do we have any more now? Okay, so the only other comment that I have is we have been really struggling at the CCAG Resource Management and Climate Protection Committee to have a forum for a variety of reasons. And so, and most recently, Christine Zaug resigned and the, sort of community, sustainability organization spot opened up. So I asked if the Citizens Advisory Committee for PCE would count as someone who could fill, someone from that committee could fill the seat. And, the response was yes. So, I actually emailed Stephen Booker, and asked him if he would consider applying, but I want to share it with everyone on the CAC. But if he can't, or anyone else is interested, there is an open spot, and we would welcome someone. They meet on, I think, the third Wednesdays from 3 to 5 o'clock in San Mateo. And so the one thing I think they're really gonna push on is you've got to be able to come to the meetings, so we can have a forum. So, just getting back to the CAC, Mr. Booker was very interested, and I think also his experience in unions would be really helpful there too. We don't have that kind of perspective. So that's just a quick update about that. And if there's nothing else, I don't think any action item, we'll just move on to the next. Okay, we have Blake and Raphael, item number 9, approval of local government building electrification program. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you, directors. My name is Blake Hershap. I manage building electrification programs at Peninsula Clean Energy. Tonight we're going to talk about a proposal for a local government building electrification program that we voluntarily got to meet with. Recommendation is that the board approve a local government building electrification program, including a new $10 million of revolving loan fund, existing budgeted incentive fundings for electrification projects at local government facilities. The existing incentive funding is currently projected at $1 million a year. Some background. This is a breakdown of government emissions at Menlo Park. This is an example of government emissions in 2016 from the Climate Action Plan. Many jurisdictions have done an analysis of their government emissions. You see the breakdown here. For electricity emissions, those are now down to 0 due to our procurement. At Peninsula Clean Energy, we also offer local government solar for the GovEV program, as we discussed earlier. On the fleet and employee commute side, EV Ready helps sell chargers at government buildings, and fleets has started looking at electrifying fleets. We currently do not offer anything for methane gas in buildings, and you can see that's a pretty big part of the pie. The plan here next would be to offer incentives to start electrifying those buildings. Next slide. Many jurisdictions have goals to decarbonize new and existing government facilities. This is an excerpt from the Millbraes 2020 Climate Action Plan, just showing typical language on new construction. I know some jurisdictions also have existing goals. I think half of those are 2025 goal. Next. For some more context, the Bay Area Air Quality Management ruling will impact government buildings. It's not just residential. The first one happening in 2027 is going to impact small water heaters like the one in this building. Ours happens to be electric, but of this building size. In 2029, the space heating will impact medium-sized space heating systems like the ones on the roof of this building. And then in 2031, boilers and water heaters, this will impact larger buildings like larger city halls. Brisbane City Hall is an example. The building that has those type of systems. Next. So what is needed? Governments have very diverse portfolios, and the buildings are very important public buildings to constituents. Here's an example of some buildings that have been considering electrification. East Palo Alto government building, the county owns that is electrifying. Some other building examples, very diverse portfolios. I've been to some of these, and you can see the two on the right already have GovEV plan. Because it's such a diverse portfolio and not all the equipment's the same, flexible funding solutions are gonna be a very good approach for this building stock. I'll go through our proposed program. The program components we're proposing are a flexible incentive, which I'll go through, a revolving loan fund. So the revolving loan would be paid back, the incentive would not be, and then match funding from cities or another, you can see what with state grants. The incentive program, why governments need access to incentives. Electrification does not always have a payback. The government, so there's not always like a full investment like solar. Governments cannot take out a limited loan, so a loan alone might not solve the problem. And cities have noted a need for a mix of both loan and incentive options. We are proposing a flexible incentive of $16 per therm saved per year. That's equivalent to what our current incentive saves for residential right now. So it matches that savings in terms of GHG. And just to give you an idea, every 1,000 therms saved is about 5 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year. Next. Electrification revolving loan fund here. The idea is that we put in $10 million of seed funding. I'm sorry, I have the 5 still written there. That PC that from that projects are funded. Governments install electrification equipment. The governments then repay that loan. And then that is used to fund future projects. An important part of revolving loan funds and the most difficult part is the seed funding. And that's what we're looking at today. Why governments need access to loans, budgets are limited. Individual projects are the wrong size for one-off traditional finance. That's why the solar going through PC has been so. California Energy Commission loan is too restrictive. It's been difficult for some of our government buildings to be able to apply for. And gas replacement programs are sometimes more than what's already approved in a capital improvement. I'll go through the proposed program terms. The incentive program, $1 million per year is in the current budget, $750,000 for fiscal year 2024, but then it's $1 million afterwards. Up to $16 per therm per year of gas production at the site. So larger sites or sites that use more gas, say the carbon, will have more access. $600,000 cap per project and a maximum of $600,000 per agency per year. Next, on the loan side, proposing a 7-year loan term, a 1% interest rate, which matches the state program, a $10 million seed funding, a max loan of $600,000 per project, and a max loan of $6,000 per agency per year. These two could be combined. And those two maximums, 600,000. Next. And then the proposed match requirement is a minimum of 20% cost share by non-PCE funds, this city or grants as discussed earlier. Next, I'm going to go through some examples of what this would look like for particular buildings. I'll start with a local government pool example. This is a large municipal pool with an aging gas water heater that needs to be replaced. They're going to consider keeping that for backup to avoid a larger, they're keeping the system for backup to avoid a larger electrical upgrade, which would have been an extra $1 million. It'll save over 80% of gas use. The total installation cost to electrify is $700,000. The cost to replace with the gas would have been $180,000. So the incremental cost is about $500,000. Gas savings is $60,000. Just to give you an idea, the energy cost savings here is $26,000 a year and $300,000 over 12 years, which is the low end of the life of the equipment. So there is a lot of savings for this project. What this could look like given the therm use at the site for the therm savings proposed next is a PC incentive of $390,000, a loan of $135,000. The payment of which would be over 7 years would be less than the energy cost savings. And then the 25% match would look like $175,000. Next, I'll go through an example of a hypothetical community center. So this hypothetical community center has rooftop HVAC units like the ones on this roof. A heat pump water heater would be installed. It would save 11 metric tons per year. You'll see the teal color there is the therm incentive. You'll see it's a much smaller part of the pie because there's less therm savings, 32,000. And then the 25% match would be 50,000 for the $200,000 project cost. The PCE loan here I have shown as 118. You can also do a bigger match or pull funds from somewhere else and make that loan smaller, just giving you an idea of what the breakdown would be. Next. Project selection process. We are proposing an annual streamlined application project, not complex grant, but happening once a year. Prioritizing projects based on urgency, so gas equipment that's aging out, shovel readiness, something that's ready to be installed within the next year, total therm savings, and then the showcase project that has high community visibility or the community uses a lot. And we have retaining of existing gas systems allowed for unique backup cases. All right, next I'll let you know what the operating costs would look like. This is a good question. I've shown here studies and then the agencies that back up those studies. Multiple recent studies have found that conversion from gas to heat pumps typically reduces operational costs, but in some cases it has negligible cost. The operational cost savings is higher compared with solar PV. And these are an example of studies from CPUC, Green Frontier Energy, and other states. We've also done our own internal analysis. Next. Just wanted to dig into one of those projects. There's a CPUC funded statewide municipal and school efficiency program, mostly focused on efficiency, but includes electrification with pretty strict requirements. These calculations are by Wildan, who manages that program, and they gave me some examples. These are 3 pools in California showing savings from $4,000 a year to $25,000 a year. And the city hall in the Central Coast, you'll see that increases costs by $247 per year. That would be about a 1 to 2% increase in annual energy bills at that site. So pretty small, and it's up to the city if that type of additional expense would be worth the savings. And then next, please. I'm going to go into potential impacts. This is, so we'll go the revolving loan scale over time. The chart I have here is based on the 1% interest rate. The average project size is 300,000, which is an estimate. 10 million in seed funding could fund 86 projects over 10 years. This includes the incentive program in that number. So what you'll see here on the left, so this is projects per year per fiscal year. You'll see on the left, I have a ramp up phase as cities, if the program is approved, as local governments plan for projects. Then 14 a year is the max we would project that would happen in a given year. And then after the seed funding is spent, you're down to just the revolving loan fund. So the steady state there is about 6 projects per year at this $10 million seed. Next. So based on the seed fund size, you get more projects. $5 million seed fund over 10 years would do roughly 49 projects, 10 million, 85 projects or so, and 20 million would do 150 million projects. Yes, please. The program benefits energy cost savings for local governments in most cases, funding building improvements, including help with deferred maintenance and replacement of systems or electrification at very difficult facilities. Pools are a good example of that. And then emission savings, projecting 500 or 3,000 metric tons of emission savings per year. Some examples: a municipal pool has similar emissions to 100 homes, and a small rec center is similar to 4 homes. The timeline: in May, we presented this to the CAC. We're right here in August, finalizing the program and presenting to you. Q4, we would hope to open the grant process. Q4, select the fiscal year 2024 projects, and then Q1 2024 funding will be available to start electrifying local government buildings. Next, so just closing on the recommendation. Do I read that again? Thank you.
Okay, all right, does do any of the directors have questions for the staff on this program? Okay, we'll start with Carlos over there.
Yeah, I'll start on the loan side. So it's a 7-year term, so it's a fully amortized loan over 7 years. Are you gonna be doing payments yearly basis, on a monthly basis? Who will be servicing those loans? Do we have a sense of what the administrative cost of the program is? And is it included within 10 million? Or do you sorry for those questions.
Those are good questions. Okay, I'll feel that. So, we're already kind of setting up the capacity to handle payments by virtue of the government solar GovEV program. Our intention is that it would be fully electronic on a monthly basis. And be as low overhead as possible. We're not, that 1% on the loan is to cover some administrative costs. But we are not envisioning any additional.
And that 1%, that's a loan origination fee?
No, it would be
It's an
amortized, yeah, interest rate.
Okay, so it's the interest rate of 1%, saying,
That's correct.
which is essentially $100,000. Right, 10% is 1 million, 1% is $100,000.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so-
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I think over.
that's correct. I mean,
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think the response to this is going to exceed all expectations, quite honestly. So the one concern I have here is that when we talk about the seed capital and limits, keeps applying every year. I think you need a mechanism in there for fairness. And perhaps, I mean, obviously, some local governments are gonna say, the sooner we get this in, we're gonna get the money because we're first in line. Maybe to be fair, you have a deadline that everybody has to submit an application for funds so that you can evaluate them all. And if someone in the previous year got funds, then there's a real urgency. So it's not the same communities over and over getting the money.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys good with that?
Yes, and that's the intention. So there would be an annual cadence, a specific deadline for submitting
Like a no
proposals. That's correct.
And then I notice the funding and then people would.
And we should put that in prioritization as well. So,
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
So I apologize, I should know this, but can you tell me the comparison of what the terms are that provide some great payers for the building identification program as compared to what we're providing to the government?
I think your question was what the loans that we're providing for heat pump water heaters now are 0%.
Yeah, for 0%.
Yeah, it's 0%.
10 years.
So that may be one.
That's true. That's right. We are considering more. To reduce the risk profile.
And how is it modifying?
So we are looking at reducing it to 5 years.
5 years.
Yes, that's brilliant.
I wanted to ask if there was any consideration about prioritizing communities that want to be at the priority areas or have a significant environmental health burden. And if there's a way to factor that in as a public health equity lens in prioritization.
I think that's very good.
I think that would also comply with our DEAI and work that we're doing. So thank you very much. Do we have other questions? And
The shovel readiness, we talked about it, it's dependent on the city's plans, some specifications that they have for it. It's all put on the city and they use proposal of what they're asking for. So there's no origination from you, collaboration with you as far as size. Yes, but they need, but they use swapping, and you talk about aged out equipment. Who makes the determination of the aged out equipment?
That would be the city to come to us and then I think been letting us know how old the equipment is, I would ask that. Curious, like I got the mechanical systems design commercial, so I'm very curious about this stuff. And the cities would have to come to us with a plan. City projects can take over a year often, maybe over many years. So that's what the shovel ready is.
And that's what you can see the shovel ready plans, we need those standards. But
It's a small building, let's say it was just one little water heater that, but that's well.
thank you.
I see Chair DeGolia has a hand up.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Blake, I have a question. On your first example, the hypothetical about the gas heater, heated swimming pool, did I understand that the operating costs for the gas were $60,000 a year, and for the electrical heater replacement, it would be $36,000 a year, or $34,000 a year, so it'd be a $26,000 operating cost savings, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, that's significant. Thank you.
I might, thank you. I might add that pool heat pumps, because they supply the water at lower temperatures, are the most efficient heat pumps versus space heating and water heating. So in pools, we're gonna see operational savings every. And that commercial accounts have that's a good point. Commercial rates tend to be a little lower than residential rates. So you see a little bit better story on cost savings. And then if there was ever that marginal cost increase, like $250 a year, adding solar to really offset that.
But yeah, but my question regards this example, which is a municipal pool, so it'd be at a municipal rate. And for that savings, that's a significant savings. I think we're going to see a number of municipal pools exchanging their gas heating for electrical heating under this program. That'll be a good deal of savings, and they'll capture it, as this example shows, an extremely significant incentive towards that savings. So, I mean, we're going to see that play out in spades.
Dr. Lee.
I just was wondering, another angle we've been talking about is prioritizing projects that are more labor friendly. And I was wondering, is there a way to structure the criteria or prioritization, or possibly even give preferential consideration for projects that follow the PLA?
I can speak to that. So we are not dictating the contracting structure. There'll be city projects under the city rules. So you know, most cities are operating with rules that favor union labor already. But we will not be dictating those practices and specific procurement process that the city may go.
Do you mind elaborating on the motivation to make the statement that we will not be? Is that it's a scope of legality, or
It's just that we don't own the construction project itself.
And also, I think the size of these projects is sometimes very small. So they're all going to be under HVAC mandate because they're municipal buildings. But like, for example, I know in our town, you know, at a certain size level, we generally end up with union labor, but it's not mandated because sometimes you know, it's a prevailing, it ends up being a prevailing wage project. I think it would be hard for us to get in like at that size and scope. It might be really hard to overstep the cities. And so my suggestion would be, everybody here, push your own city to, you know, focus on that. But
Yeah, so on the government pool example. A capital infusion for less than $390,000, is that correct? I mean, what is that incentive?
Yes, that's currently in budget there's already an approved budget for this program of $1 million a year. That would come from.
So, and do we actually think that $1 million is enough? Given, the potential uptake we're talking about?
Take that first one.
Okay. Well, to the earlier comment that, Director Mackin had, we do think that there's a pretty good chance that we will get a lot of projects. And, there is an open question about how big this program could in theory be. Certainly it's, something that the board may wish to consider. It could be potentially larger, and that's, certainly something that we could accommodate if the board would choose to make it.
The incentive after installation, or is the incentive paid once the project has gone through your process of loan?
Well, what we've been discussing today is that the fund would be in advance.
Or when needed, it's gonna depend on the contracting mechanism for literally the contractor for a pool like that. But we would provide in advance, then verify on the bills. I have experience with this type of building and looking at it for electrification, so for the application process, I plan to review that and it'll be pretty apparent.
There may be, some sort of gate that we may want the city to have reached before funds are dispersed, like, contract in place for the project or something like that. That's TBD.
Thank you.
I might want to add one more thing on that. Like the pools and how much money this is, I'm starting to get a count of the number of pools. I know there are at least 7 municipal pools in the county, but that is a risk because they have such big fair savings and it's directly connected, so I'm working with that. There are a lot of pools that will increase the demand of the program.
That $60 per firm that's, in this example, that's about roughly 25,000 firms. Is that the annual savings for this system or lifetime
Yes.
savings? Okay.
Anyway,
So it's saving about 25,000. It's 60, I mean, where does the number $60 per firm come from?
we picked it because it is equal to the number of the dollars per term in the residential program. The heat pump water heater and heat pump space heater, roughly at our current incentive levels are $15 and $17 per year.
Does this program apply to schools that have schools, for example?
We have it listed as local government, and our plan is to start it as only government. In fact, started as member agencies. Expected that question. Schools in the future, a possibility.
Another question.
Thank you.
So like in Burlingame, the city municipal pool is shared 50-50 with the school. The Burlingame High School's pool is paid for by the city, was built by the city, but we split the operating cost. So how do you handle something?
I think we would still consider it a city property. And that would be a big thing.
Okay. Great.
Why not schools? There's an awful lot of schools.
Probably wouldn't say that, I think, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I know of 9 pools including back to the school, but I know there's more than just real quick. Sally, what you
Okay. There are no more questions. I'm going to go ahead and open it to the public and then we'll return back for final comments. I see I have 2 hands on the screen, but let me just ask really quickly in the room, any members of the public that have a comment? Okay, we'll go to the screen. I think the print is so tiny, but I think it's Dave.
First one is Mark Rose.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you. Mark Roost, Sustainable Energy Inc. When I sold solar pool heating, among other solar water heating uses in the 1980s, solar pool heating with just the rubber, basically those rubber covers, was around 30-40% efficient, and solar pool heating with actual capture of heat in a solar panel was upwards of 60% efficient. So you might look at the cost difference if, say, you used PV solar just for the pumping systems, and if you used solar either partly passive solar by having a pool cover and partly active solar by having panels, whether they are open, whether they're glass covered or not glass covered, and explore all those options and see what they are today, because this was 40 years ago plus. But it's worth checking to see how that compares with the heat pump. And then what works year by year. So if you were to, year by year, somebody said that you expect an explosion of demand, and I would too. Once people realize that there's a good deal to be had. So you might look each year, look again to see what the growth looks like that year, because you may have an exponential rise instead of a linear rise. And so when it starts to exceed the reserve, the rolling, the returning loan, the $10 million that keeps coming back, when it starts to approach that, you might look at switching to subsidize the interest from loans that are gotten, and maybe collaborate with the IRA or the Infrastructure Act incentives, or maybe California incentives, along with that 16 cents per therm incentive. You may be able to stack some incentives and supports for making it possible for people to simply put in the system and make the payments on it out of the savings. So there's no net negative cash flow for the agency or for later on for the other organizations or individuals. And then RMI teaches one last sentence. RMI teaches how to use better glazing to save on the HVAC. And so you really ought to talk to RMI about, because when Amory Lovins came to Santa Cruz in the 90s, he said that they reglazed a whole office building, and that savings from that was enough to reduce the size of the HVAC so much that the savings on the HVAC paid for the glazing. That's the thought.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Okay, let's all try to keep our public comments within 2 minutes, please. And
Right.
Dave, no worries. Dave, can I please have you?
Sure. Good evening, board directors and Chairman Colson. Yes, I've looked at this plan. I've actually talked with Raphael before on the plan, and I think this is a great way to help municipalities out. They're all struggling, and any help they can get would be more than beneficial. I was thinking, with that surplus, you have the money in the surplus fund. I'd see something like maybe 10% of whatever the surplus fund is go towards this program. I think that would be a good way to use some of that money up and reinvest it. And then, as more and more pools change out to electric, I mean, there are a lot of pools in this county, public, private, and there's also community college pools. There's all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I think this is a great idea, and I wish you could take into consideration passing this and then sending that on to the excessive funds committee. See what they have to say. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Morrow. All right, do we have Kathleen or does somebody else raise their hand? Nellie, we're good? Okay. Okay, great. So we're gonna go ahead and close public comment. Reopen it to the board for any final comments or conclusions, and then I believe we need a motion on this. Is that correct?
I'll move to approve of the comments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Mates and a second by Director Mueller. May we please have a roll call vote, Annie? Oh, Chair Folia, did you have a comment very quickly? I thought I saw you.
No, I mean, if we're going to a vote, I think it's fine. I think that the recommendation is a very good recommendation. I think that Mark Roost's comment about looking at solar thermal and doing a comparison between that and PV, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. We obviously want to come out with a recommendation for what is most cost effective, and both would totally reduce the natural gas that would be burning a natural gas heater. So I think that's a good recommendation. I think the proposal is the right proposal. I think that if we get the demand that kind of goes through the ceiling, we can always increase the amount of the loan, but it's going to take a while to get there. And I think we should see how it launches and how it goes. And the excess funds committee, we're making this decision before the excess funds committee makes its recommendation. So I think the $10 million is the right recommendation.
Great. Nellie, go ahead and do the roll call, please.
Okay, San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County,
Yeah.
Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Yeah.
Brisbane,
Yeah.
Burlingame,
Yeah.
Colma,
Yep.
Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Please.
Boston City,
Yeah.
Apple Bay,
Yeah.
Hillsborough, Los Angeles,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yeah.
Millbrae, Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City, San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo, South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
Thank you all very much. All right, we're moving on. Thank you, Blake and Roxanne for that great report. We'll be moving on to item number 10. Is she presenting online or is she here? Where are you? Should I have a question? Oh, you're hiding in the back. Here, I get over there.
She's sitting.
You're not. All right, Leslie is here to give us non-action item, it's an update on that billing tariff system. Yeah, great, thank you. You can go to the first slide. Thank you.
So a little bit of an overview, what I'm going to touch on tonight, a brief recap of the NEM 2.0 sunset to the NEM, to the net billing tariff transition. We talked about this a few months ago, but I'm just going to lightly review that. Go over some of the major differences between these two programs. Talk about the customers that are going to be impacted by NBTs and this NBT applies to. And a little bit previewing what some of the other CCs are doing, what we know so far. And then just highlight some of the policy considerations that we need to take into consideration over the next couple of months in order to put forth our initial NBT policy to be in effect by December of this year, which is when the first transition of customers into an NBT program will take place from PG&E. There has not been any indication that that's going to be delayed. And so the expectation is that the first customers being billed into the net billing tariff program will go forward starting in December of this year. So the next slide. So what is NBT or net billing tariff? It's the new solar interconnection policy for new interconnection applications that began April 15th of this year. So if you had a solar system already installed previously, if you had a new application and you're waiting to get an installation, but that application was sent in and approved prior to April 15th of this year, you are in the NEM 2.0 program. Right now, the NBT program applies only to brand new applications coming now or customers who have aged out of their initial 20-year interconnection agreement or done something to transition out of that initial interconnection agreement. And you may have heard, externally, the phrase NEM 3.0. We're not going to use NEM 2.0. That's not the right language. Because this is not a net energy metering policy. This is very different from the net energy metering policy that's been around in California for the last 25 years or so. This is a new program, the net billing tariff program. The street name that we're expecting the utilities to start to refer to it to their customers is solar billing plan. So you're going to hear me say NBT or net billing tariff, potentially solar billing plan. Those are the same things. We're not using NEM 3.0. Okay, next slide. And then just a little bit of a recap here. So the policy positions of NBT that the CPUC, these were the goals that were set out here, wanting to make sure that they wanted to credit excess generation, at the grid value, not retail value. Make sure that customers who are subscribed to this program are being charged for energy consumption on a time of use rate. That also encourages energy storage. Wants to make sure that they're not giving an incentive to customers to dispatch energy in the middle of the day, so not export energy in the middle of the day. And these are policy positions that CPUC feels like they need to put forward in order to have a sustainable growth of solar in California going forward. So these are not, this is not a value judgment on these policies, but this is what the program is intended to do. Go to the next slide. So a little bit of an evolution from where we started with net energy metering, the first version, NEM1. That program was in place with some minor modifications really for 25 years. It was pretty much the same program. The primary objective was to encourage customers to install a lot of rooftop solar, and they had tariffs or rate structures that incentivize folks to offset 100% plus of their energy usage at their home and push out as many kilowatt hours as you felt like doing during the day, because we're going to credit them full retail value. There were some small tweaks with the NEM 2.0 program, but not many. NEM 1 and NEM 2 are fairly similar, but net billing tariff again is something that's very different. So in the net billing tariff program, the CPUC does not want customers to be exporting energy in the middle of the day. There's too much solar happening in the middle of the day already, and they want new solar systems that are going in to be paired with battery storage effectively. So the next slide. So a little matrix here about sort of the evolution of these policies from that energy metering to NBT. Again, so the rate structures that were available in net energy metering, there were multiple rates that someone could subscribe to. A little bit of a tweak under NEM 2 where you could only subscribe to TOU rates, but you had a few you could choose from. With the NBT program, you can only subscribe to electrification rate. So PG&E is that's the ELECT rate. So any customers that are on the or in the NBT program will be taking service under the ELECT residential rate. And then the value of the solar, you know, when you're generating on site, you're generating on site, you use it on site, that's great, same value. It's the export value that's changed significantly. So if you're exporting energy offsite, you're pushing it back out to the grid. In the first generations of net metering, you were getting retail credit or almost full credit for those exports. Now with NBT, it's credited at a much lower value. And again, sorry, just to clarify, so put this matrix together, this is really sort of policy positions and changes based off of the program from the IOU customer perspective. So like I referenced here about the net surplus compensation, that's not how we've been handling our solar customers, but that is what's been happening for IOU customers. One of the tweaks that are coming into play for excess generation under net billing tariff is they still will do the net surplus compensation. So if you get to the end of your true-up year and you generated extra energy overall, extra kilowatt hours overall, they will still calculate a benefit for you at that net surplus compensation rate, but then they're gonna go back and back out any ACC credits they gave you during the year. It's really convoluted and messy, and we'll come back to that in future time because I think that's a place where we can have some differentiation. You know, the other big change here is the billing and true-up periods for the IOU customer. So previously, you had a monthly minimum charge for just the $10 a month or so for being connected to the grid, and then you had your true-up bill at the end of your anniversary. With the NBT program, bundle customers are now gonna have to start paying their charges every month. They will still have a true-up at the end of the year to handle any, you know, anyone who happens to be an excess generator, but they're actually gonna have to be paying their energy bill on a monthly basis. They won't be able to carry, you know, credits back and forth for the whole year and then just pay one time. So the next slide. So what does this mean, you know, with regards to, the value of solar from the customer's perspective? So if you can just sort of think about it in a couple ways, like, did I use my energy on site? Did I export it and not use it on site? If I'm using my energy on site, which means I'm using the energy directly from my solar system to charge my car or power my home during the day, and I'm not pushing any kilowatt hours through the grid, then the program remains virtually unchanged. You're effectively getting a retail credit because you're offsetting what you would otherwise be buying from the utility at a retail rate. But as soon as you start pushing kilowatt hours back to the grid under the MBT program, that's where the solar system sort of loses its value, which is where the encouragement to have the paired with battery storage to sort of arbitrage and not export in the middle of the day. But if you are going to export, you export it during the peak times, when the grid power has a higher value. You know, it could be a little bit more value to exporting during those peak times. The determination or the value of that kilowatt hour that exporting to the grid is being determined by something called the avoided cost calculator, the ACC. This is not a tool that was just created. This is actually a tool that was created, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago initially, by a group called E3. They've been working with the CPUC for a very long time about valuing sort of avoided costs for energy efficiency, demand response, you know, other types of things. So this is and the tool is, you know, updated all the time. So this is a mechanism of value of grid power that is sort of widely accepted, or the CPUC is very comfortable with. It's the first time it's being applied to solar energy though. And so it's a bit controversial because it is valuing the exported energy during the day when solar energy is doing its thing at a very low rate, because there is effectively there's too much supply and not enough demand. And so the grid doesn't need another kilowatt hour at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on most days. And so if you're gonna put it on the grid, they're not gonna value it at the retail rate. They're gonna give you a very small avoided cost rate. Go to the next slide. So this is some analysis that I borrowed from my good friend Justin Trudeau at MCE, that he did, sort of comparing the impact of net metering to NBT for you know, what it's doing in terms of valuing generation costs and T&D costs. The bigger hit really does come on the T&D side for exported energy. They're pushing kilowatt hours back out to the grid. It's almost nothing in value that you're going to get from that. And so when you put those, sort of push those two items together, you're losing about 90% of the value from a retail for an exported kilowatt hour. And so again, this is just to sort of illustrate, you know, what's going on and why there's so much emphasis on moving forward, not having a, you know, exported energy middle of the day. Probably need to have smaller, you know, solar systems. Definitely would want to have a battery backup in order to take full value of you know, solar on the rooftop. Do the next slide. You're not meant to read this chart. It's an illustration, but this is a snapshot of a monthly chart from the ACC. So this is the energy export credits calculation from the AAC. This is actually for November of this year, coming up, and it just shows you that there is a different. I mean, there is a opportunity to have a different value for every hour of the day of the week. They're not all different, some of them are the same, and then you can see some differentiating later, but there's an opportunity to have a different value for every hour of the day, every day of the month, every day of the year. I think somebody counted the actual different values, and I think there's something like 546 different values for energy throughout the year. Let's go to the next slide. And so what does this mean for customers in general? What does this mean for our customers? So there's really not going to be any immediate impact for most of our net energy metering customers, because if you have installed a solar system in the last, you know, 10, 15 years, 5 years, you still have, you know, 15 10, 15, years left on your original interconnection agreement. So there's nothing really to worry about for those folks. Nothing's gonna change. Even if your system hasn't been installed yet, if you signed that contract and you got your application in before April 14th of this year, you still have 3 years to get that system installed. And then you have the full 20 years of that interconnection agreement under NEM 2. So who is going to be impacted by this NBT policy going forward? The most immediate customers that can be impacted are folks that have had their solar system for over 20 years already. So people that installed their systems 2000, 2003, in that sort of time frame, they've already aged out of their interconnection agreement. And so those are gonna be the first batch of customers that are gonna be transitioning over into this new program. And this can be quite a change because they have been under a program for over 20 plus years, giving them a full retail credit for any exported energy. Their systems were designed in a different universe. They're gonna be transitioning over into this program. And so it's gonna be, a little bit of a rough ride for them. By our analysis, we think we have about 250 of those customers that will be transitioning during the first year. So starting in December through December of next 2024, we think we have about 250 customers that fall into that category. We are going to get some updated reporting from PG&E to, flash that out, but what we've been able to discern from the data that we do have is it's about that much. So it's not a lot of customers. It's less than 1% of our existing NEM customers. And it actually, the number actually stays pretty low until about 2006 or 2026. 2006 is when systems started to ramp up. You might remember, I think it was around 2006, 2007, Solar City was founded in Foster City. Folks started shopping around different sort of models for financing solar, and it really, really took off sort of in 2010 to 2014-ish timeframe is when there was like huge explosive growth. So it's going to be a trickle over into this NBT land for the legacy customers initially. For new customers, we don't really have visibility on that yet. But those systems are ideally, hopefully being designed with this new program in mind. So customers should have an understanding of the program that they're getting into now. And yeah, so it's not like rules are changing on them. So let's go to what are the other CCAs planning? So there's only one CCA so far that's actually filed their NBT program, which is CPA. It's the Clean Power Alliance, the largest CCA down in Southern California. They did a lot of analysis on the options. They looked at what if we, just kept everyone at, NEM 2 on our side and, just paid out at a really high rate for generation on the CCA end. What if we, manipulated the ATC tables a bit to, have higher incentives at different times. They looked at all of that, and what they came out with was the best course of action is to just follow SCE's program, so to mirror the IOU's program for the basic NBT compensation, but then establish some programmatic opportunities to encourage solar plus storage. So they're actually developing like a one-time incentive for battery storage to go along with new systems. Also looking at other opportunities to engage the low-income communities, but in a programmatic way and not a manipulating of the ATC table way. Because the feedback that they got from installers were, we're just going to model off of the IOU's programs anyways. So you can do something different, but we're not going to take it into consideration because we can't model, 17 different options for customers. And then informally, the CT is actually have a working group that majority of the call into every couple of weeks talking about these programs and what people are doing, what they're talking about. And informally, so far, it looks like most folks are looking to do something similar, probably follow the IOU program, but then have some other opportunities to provide incentives for battery storage, maybe have a demand response type program to encourage dispatch, payouts during, critical times. some incentives for low income, but as sort of an aside, like it's an paired on the side, not necessarily trying to do something radically different than what the IOUs are doing following the ACC. But we'll see. I mean, this is all gonna roll out in the next couple of months, so some people might change their mind, but that's what we're all sort of telling each other right now. So next slide. And so our policy, and so I went through all of the song and dance to kind of give you this background. The NBT program is really a prescriptive program for the IOUs. The CCAs do not have to follow what the IOUs are doing, just like we don't follow exactly now what the IOUs do for net metering and compensation for net metering. We have a little bit of flavor of how we handle it. So we have to make a decision about what we want to do for NBT, because we will have customers that are going to be falling into that program on the IOU side in a few months. We're still looking at some of the different options with Calpine, with PG&E, on bill presentment, but I would just sort of tell Rob, I'm leaning towards wanting to recommend that we at least initially follow the IOU program, and then look at other opportunities to have incentives on the side. We can always revisit this program later when we do our first pass at it, and kind of learn how people are interacting, learn what's going on in the industry. But I think to minimize customer confusion, it's already going to be traumatic for people that are going to have to be moving from an old program to this new program. Ideally, it would probably be great if we could be as consistent as possible, so there's less opportunity for mixed messages. So next couple months, we'll be bringing forward an actual formal proposal for us to pass likely in October, so that we have that in place and ready to go for whatever customers PG&E starts to send our way in December.
All right, yeah, okay, great, thanks, Leslie. All right, so I'll open it up to director's questions of Leslie. Yeah, just see if there's any questions. Okay, I see none. Oh, Carlos, please.
Yeah, that was, telling my partner here, that was really complicated.
Yeah.
But I had a question on school incentives that we might, at the end, you said, stick with the IOU.
Yeah.
Potentially add on to that some incentive. What do you have in mind?
Yeah, so I, just started talking with Brock Bill and his team, about it a little bit. But I know that Peter's been looking into launching some programs for DERBPT. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So as noted at the beginning of the meeting, our existing residential solar storage program. And we have already started looking at a successor program, and we hope to bring something to the board soon-ish in the next 2 to 3 months. And we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we have had instant conversations with other utilities in other locations, and that have some pretty innovative finance and incentive structure programs for battery storage. And that could be coupled with any number of mechanisms. So we are starting to look at that very seriously. That's something the board has in front of it.
So it would be incentive on installations.
Most likely, that's right. Now, we do have, rate making capability. In theory, we could do something there as well, but as Leslie notes, doing it within the context of this is extremely complicated, so it would be something that's outside of this.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, I think we have one, I don't think, what comment? Oh, yeah.
Just a question regarding the story of the midday solar exports. You're talking about how they'll be charged at a higher rate. In other words, they're using during peak hour production, using their own power. And then say when they produce too much, it goes back, but then they're charged a higher rate for transmission.
No, so when you export, so if you're pushing energy to the grid, if you're not pulling anything from the grid, then there's no charge to you. what's happening is when you push energy back out to the grid, you're going to get a much smaller credit. And because there's the way that the ACC is valued, that export is there's almost no transmission value. And so it's very nominal. And then there's a little bit of generation value. And so pushing kilowatt hours back to the grid at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's just, but it's not a net loss, it's just a very, very low rate.
So if I'm pushing kilowatt hours out to the grid, I'm not getting charged anything at PG&E, I'm just getting a very small. Yeah.
I see, I think one member of the public, Mark, you have a comment?
Hi, okay, so the IRA says that if your batteries are made with materials from North America and made in United States factories, they will provide a subsidy of $45 per kilowatt hour. Now we're planning to sell at $48 a kilowatt hour when we get to full mass production, which means that the net cost or net price of the battery, just the battery itself, is $3 per kilowatt hour. Now, this offers a very promising opportunity for fighting the results, the stripping of solar's value by net metering. Because now you can put as much battery as you need in at $3 a kilowatt hour, and you can, like 20 kilowatt hours, so that's $60, plus whatever infrastructure, whatever balance the system is. So that mean, and then the solar is going to be selling for 35 cents or kilowatt hour or so from a bigger plant. So that means that it'll be possible to provide the solar and the batteries for both the building and all the vehicles associated with it. And when you switch to powering the vehicles electrically, you get both eliminating the operating costs of running internal combustion engines, and you get rid of the costs of paying for fuel. And after the savings with no net negative cash flow have paid for the cost of the system, your energy is free. So you can help by helping move that at scale once it's available, which should be within a couple of years for the batteries and maybe within a year and a half for the solar, and I mean at scale, then that will be a huge opportunity. I'd really like to talk with people and sort of establish a relationship with staff about a planning process for that.
Appreciate that. Okay, no other public comments, Dylan? And this was just an item for discussion purposes. Thank you, Leslie, for everything. And we'll move on to item number 11, Gwen. Review and implications of customer research on brand awareness and the attitudes that energy, climate, and electrification.
Okay, hi, the board. Gwen Rose, I'm the director of marketing and community relations, and just passed my 6th mark. Started March 21st, and this is my first time presenting to this group, so it's nice to be here, and I'm excited to share what customers feedback we're hearing, and then give you a sense of how it's informing completing activities. So I'll cover our sources of customer research input. We'll talk about what we know about brand awareness, share what our customer priorities are, and then talk about next steps. Next slide. Here we go. So yeah, coming into the organization, and I've come previously, I've been in solar and renewables for 20 years now. But in my previous role, I've had and voice of customer is paramount. Really understanding what the customer needs from you is key, both to designing a product as well as to convincing them that they need it. So I came in really impressed with the amount of research and deep listening that the organization does to its customers. So we do verbatim, we bring in verbatim comments, we do one-on-one interviews, we have focus groups done in multiple languages across the territory. And then we can use that, themes emerge from those, and then we use those to each year do a survey, a randomized sample taken of the entire service territory to ask questions about their attitudes about electrification, climate, priorities of electricity, and so on. So I'm going to share mostly the results of the annual perceptions survey that we do. We've been doing it every year since 2020. There's a lot more information in the board packet for kind of brevity's sake, because I know we want to keep this to 10 minutes or so. I want to give you the sort of highest level look at what we're learning. And to do that, I actually just want to start with some customer verbatims, put you into the mind of our customers. So next slide. So these are things that we've heard from customers. I would love options to PG&E. So this is from a Peninsula Clean Energy customer who doesn't know they're a customer. I am not sure who you are and what you want. That comes from a customer who frequently clicks on our emails and clicks through the links. So to us, they look engaged. We still don't know who we are. And then you gave me a rebate, but I didn't realize you also provide my electricity. And this is something that the programs team has heard. And so what this tells me is that we need new cohesive ways of talking about the organization, as well as our services and our programs in a frame that really. Next slide. So that's brand strategy. So that's something we're really thinking about right now, which is there's a desired perception that we want our customers to have, and there's actual perception, and how do we start to bring them together? What is the set of activities that we can do? How do we design the associations and then make sure that those associations land in the ways that we want them to? Okay, so the next set of verbatims that I'll share are to give you a sense of how diverse our customer base is. And I'm sure everyone understands that, but just so we hear, I just want safe, inexpensive power. This year, the price of gas and electricity has been unsustainable. I'm interested in learning more about what we can do personally. And I'm interested, but I'm not going to change appliances until mine need a replacement. And so this just gives you a sense. We have a really diverse customer base and we want to serve all of them. We need to develop ways of talking to them differently, meeting them where they are, by providing them with content and context that's relevant. Next. So think of that as relationship marketing. So there's what we want to say, there's what they're interested in, and then that Venn diagram of what is relevant to them. And that's really where we want to start to focus in marketing and branding. Okay, next. Okay, so getting into the results now. Go ahead and, okay, so what you'll see, this is the persuasion monitor is the term that our survey partner, Heiner and Partners, uses to basically describe a set of funnel metrics, right? This idea that in persuasion, you have to be aware before you can be familiar. You have to be familiar before you can be favorable, and so on. So they ask a set of questions to understand how they feel about brand, and here are the results. And so the main thing to note is that in San Mateo County, brand awareness is 41% total. 15% can identify us unaided. So we asked the question, do you know who provides your electricity or who you can choose for electricity? 15% of people asked on this survey could identify it without being prompted. And then in total, once prompted with a list, they go, oh yeah, I've seen that name, Peninsula Clean Energy. So 41%. Those that are familiar is 31%. Favorable has seen a nice uptick between 2021 and 2023 from 19 to 25%. Would consider as a 31% and now uses 20%. Metrics in San Mateo have been fairly stable, flat for a couple of years. So we're thinking a lot about how we can do a big brand awareness push, because in general, what we find is when they become aware, they do become favorable. Our messages, our values tend to land. In Los Banos, it's our second year of doing the survey there, and all of the metrics have improved. So we went from 14% total aided awareness to 33% last year, from 8% familiar to 27% there. So you can see, as you can see, just an uptick in all of those values. There's still a lot of work to do, but it's year 2. Okay, next slide. So I wanted to get a closer look at favorability, to understand what it means when they're favorable. You know, if there's 22% favorable, are the rest unfavorable to them? So what you see is the blue bar that shows who's favorable, and that's in the 20%, 25%, I think. Yeah, in the 25% range, in San Mateo County, and then Los Gatos, 16%. Really big gray bars, those just represent 75% that just are not aware of who we are. They're not sure of who we are. And then when you dig into the unfavorable, that's the yellow chart at the top, those people tend to have a higher rate of misperceptions about the organization. So they think that we're charging a higher rate than PG&E, they think that we're a branch of PG&E, or they think that we're for profit. So the good news is that there's actually a lot that we can do to probably change people from unfavorable to favorable, and then there's a ton that we can do to make people just aware. So there's a lot of opportunity. Next slide. So one of the questions that we ask is, if your electricity service provider could provide you with a list of services, what would you prioritize, rank your top 3? So they ask, you know, lower electric rates, cleaner energy sources, programs that help the environment, that invest in renewables, that offer solar and storage, local jobs in the economy, programs that promote EVs, and help converting to electric appliances. And across the board in both San Mateo and Los Gatos, what we're seeing is that the concern around high bills has been increasing. So that's probably not surprising. Lower energy costs tops what people want and are concerned about. Then the interest in clean energy sources and interest in programs that help the environment have declined. And what that tells us is that there is a sensitivity to price that is impacting efforts on sustainability. On the flip side, what you see is an increase in interest in programs that help them take control of their costs. So even though it's not the top, you do see that there's an increase in, I want help switching my appliances to electric, and I want help with solar storage that helps with reliability during shutoff. So those things have increased.
Those are year-to-year comparisons, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, thank you, sorry. Yes, 2022 on the left, and then 2023 on the right, yeah. Next slide. Okay, attitudes about EVs, and in the board packet, I showed the year-by-year change, but it was impossible to read on a slide, so I'm trying to simplify. This is just 2023. And so what you can see is that awareness of electric vehicles is very high in San Mateo, 92%. Awareness of electric vehicles in Los Gatos is lower at 62%. The interesting thing is that favorability is fairly high, 77%, 58%. But familiarity is low, so that indicates a communication gap. And we can work on making people more familiar, which should help with not, you know, raising favorability, but also raising would consider an electric vehicle. That said, would consider an EV as your next vehicle has declined. Last year it was 55%, this year it's 40%, but it's something we've seen in a couple of other CCA territories as well. So it's curious. Not exactly sure what that's about, but there is a decline of it in the past year of interest. Okay, next slide.
Excuse me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I would just say that there's been a lot of push by the oil companies recently, trying to instill fear in anyone considering EV purchases about charging stations. And I think that these statistics kind of show that.
Well, interestingly on this, and we asked about used EV barriers. In general, concern about charging stations has dropped. It's on there, but it's dropped as one of the primary concerns. And this is only used EVs in this case, but battery life is one of the barriers. Range still has raises concerns, and the maintenance costs. Great.
Did you ask whether or not there's a perception that EV vehicles are more expensive?
I could look in the verbatims on that. I do think I have a slide on the like concerns around cost to operate, range, and all of that, but I didn't have it in here. It shouldn't be in the board memo. And then this is a really simplified view of what's also in the board packet. This is, kind of a high level view about attitudes about electric appliances. So there's a lot of good news actually, that persuasion metrics across the board have gone up from 2022, obviously from 2020 to 2023. And we looked at ranges, cooktops, we looked at space heating, water heating, dryers, and electric fireplaces. And it all looks fairly similar to this. So I'm just including raises and space heating. So awareness is beyond 90% for ranges and cooktops. People know that there is an electric option. And then familiar with it, 46%, 36%. So there's some work we can do there, make people more familiar with the options. And then favorable is 33% in San Mateo, 23% in Sanos. And then would consider is fairly like 42% and 27% in Sanos. But as you can see, there's a bit of work that we can do to bring up those kind of lower funnel metrics around electrification. And so we're talking a lot about the one-stop shop, the tools that we can provide people, the ways to make people kind of comfortable understanding what it means to really switch. This is another view. So asked about ranking what people thought were true about natural gas appliances versus electric appliances. The green bar shows where electric won. The blue bar shows gas. And then, orange is neither. Gray was not sure. And so electric appliances win clearly on indoor air quality, safety, environmental benefits, and carbon footprint. And then gas appliances are seen as better. Okay. And then people seem divided on which is best in terms of efficiency, operating costs, and efforts. So this tells us where we can focus our communication efforts. Next slide. And then we ask about climate change attitudes. So about half of residents in San Mateo County, 38%, believe that their individual household actions can have a meaningful impact, while about 30% would pay up to 10% more to purchase products that do so. And then in Los Angeles, 39% believe their individual household actions can have a meaningful impact, and then 24% would be willing to pay up to 10% more to purchase products that do so. And then, interesting, the third line is, I am willing to replace my vehicle and or appliance before the end of their useful life to help mitigate my impacts on climate change. That's 35% in San Mateo, 18% in Los Angeles. I just sort of highlight, in my mind, that's the movable middle when we think about our decarbonization goals. That's who we want to be focusing on getting our messages to, because they're the ones that are going to be most front end to understand the programs and take it. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay, so now next steps. So we take in, what we're hearing about customers, what we want to do on the brand awareness, how we want to evolve the way we talk to our customers and ways that resonate with them. And so this is kind of the perfect time to be doing a brand audit. We've done this a couple of times since the organization started. We did it, when we launched in 2016, then there was an update to the brand, look and feel, 2018, 2020. So here we are, new CEO, growing team, lots of new programs, ambitious goals. So this is a good time for us to sort of stop and reflect and say, where is the brand? Where do we want it to go? And what do we need to do to get there? So we're doing the brand audit right now. We're working on getting a marketing RFP so that we can bring in some agency support to help us with the brand framework and the marketing and the creative that would be needed to really activate on these. And then we start executing. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, question.
Yeah.
Sorry, one thing. In the earlier slides, 24% of people said that they currently use PCE, whereas the number should actually be more than 98%. So does that just mean people? Yeah, as for the familiarity numbers were higher, and even the aided, unaided numbers were higher. So people just still, even though they know who we are, they still don't realize that they're things.
Yeah, I mean, if you see that 75% just are unsure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chair, I think that that's something that we've seen before, though. It's maybe not that specific, but I mean, I think so. This is
kind of a consistent issue that we're trying to get. And we've talked before whether it's PG or
A whole bunch of
there's a lot, but
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion. So there's a lot that we can do to clarify. And then there's just a lot that we can do to talk about ourselves in ways.
Do we have data that compares other CCAs?
On metrics?
Yep.
Yeah, and I could share the, like, Sonoma Clean Power, their awareness is 70%. Oh, they also get that recent.
Yeah, good. To me, it would be really helpful to understand why you think some of those other CCAs have higher brand awareness than us and what they're doing differently and how we could maybe incorporate some of what they're doing and what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. All marketing counter. Bringing in as much information.
That's great.
You some of us to stay been around a little bit longer.
Yeah.
There is that.
Okay, I think if there's no more questions. Oh, go
I
ahead.
have a question. I guess I'm kind of wondering, like, if we step back, like, where, because I was under PC as having, you know, being oversubscribed in terms of our programs. And in really high demand. And so, how, you know, forgive me, but I'm just trying to understand, like, is there an invaluable nexus to brand strategy, goals, and utilization, higher rate of utilization, or just like the goal of public education? Like, where, how does this fit strategically into, you know, what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, the strategic goals that I came in to was, we want 60% brand awareness and we want to motivate action in our programs. So those are two specific strategic goals, but to what end is an important question. And I think, you know, there's a lot that we can do to help change behavior that is outside of even just programs, you know, help people. Like, energy is so complex and confusing. I think that there's a lot that we can do to help customers take control, even if it's not necessarily participating in a program, and it's worth exploring that. And I think, like, the other piece of it for me, when I think about brand awareness, is if we can start establishing a relationship, they know who we are, they just know we're here. Then when it's time, right? Like, when my appliance goes out, when the EV program launches, and it's gonna be a broader ability to the whole base, then they already know us, we've done a bunch of the work, and they're ready to actually come to us and look for it. Right?
I also think a lot of the assumptions that are being made right now in terms, there's a lot of assumptions being made right now that there's going to be advances in the consumer market.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if we don't raise awareness up here, the consumer product manufacturers are looking at the exact same data that we are, and there's no payoff.
Exactly.
Some of our programs are well subscribed, some of them are not, and we've had that issue of how, you know, we can get that out more. I know that that's something that we're trying to work on. And then just the other thing I was gonna say too, and I think we've talked before about really wanting to be a resource. And so if they don't know who we are, and then they don't know where to go, then they can get this information.
And if you look at like our EV Bites program, they're very targeted to very specific communities, almost all to very low income. So like in Burlingame, there were only like three people that actually were able to, you know, take advantage of it. So some of our programs, when they're very in high demand and they're very overly subscribed, they're very focused. So they're not building what you're calling here the brand, you know, brand awareness at the base, the accountability base. So,
well, and we can do more, we can grow some of those
we can
programs.
grow them. Yeah, we just have to understand that, you know, most of our programs have been focused into well, there's been
Our sub 25%.
25%. Okay, but then we don't have, like, a lot of our programs are focused on municipalities.
So
And
segmented.
They're segmented into certain
That's right.
things. They're not, they're harder to say the brand.
I would argue that we have a small segment of our county population that's very motivated, very, and has no trouble finding us, finding the programs.
Yeah.
So I think among that group, people are actually interested in this, we're pretty good. It's just, there's a whole bunch of people who just barely look at their bills. And so there's this large part that frankly, we're probably, I mean, we're always gonna struggle to reach them because they're not even gonna read the bills, much less start thinking about how to hold the question. So
They look at them very large and they get mad.
reaching the people that are motivated is that hard, but getting the unmotivated people to become motivated people, in my experience, is almost impossible.
Or to diffuse their anger
Yeah.
when the bills go, up,
Yeah.
and they don't understand why.
Yeah.
And then they see us and they're.
Yeah.
Exactly. This must be because of that whole problem.
And she'll mix up for COVID. So I want to thank you for a great presentation. Juan's doing a great job in the first 6 months. One of the things that we've started talking about internally, that will become more formal and will go to the marketing subcommittee is really a customer-centric approach, not just to our marketing, but really even thinking about it as we evaluate our programs and design new programs. We have had a presence in the marketplace that clearly positions us as subject matter experts, as we are. And our information is very dense, it's very technical. There's a lot to learn, so we're educating. But there is a sense at times that it doesn't reach the emotion of the human perspective and really our customers and what they want and what they need. So that's sort of this new overlay that I'd say when you're leading the charge with the marketing department to figure out how we shift to be inclusive of the human element and more focused on the customer as opposed to or both and focused on the industry and how we are performing industry-wide. It's just a different messaging.
Just say one thing there, a big difference between PG&E and PCE is that PG&E is gonna be shareholder focused and we are customer focused. Whole different thing. They're fighting all of their bad reputation and we have sky's the limit on reinforcing PCE really good reputation in the energy sector.
Okay, there's no more comments. I have Mark. And Nellie, any other public comments online? Mark, do you have a comment?
I do, thank you. So what I see is that the OEMs are doing everything they possibly can to maximize the dollars per vehicle on the full battery electric vehicles. And that includes increasing the size, increasing the amenities on them, not offering things or even removing things, cars like the Chevy Volt from the market that are aimed at the lower third of the market. So they're aimed at the top third of the market. What we can do about that is to create a program, and I've been thinking about it for talking with an expert about it for several years, is to organize say with other cities, with the buying cooperatives, to put together a program that maximizes the number of cars that a given part can be used in for conversion. So what I'm talking about is systematically converting the existing fleet, which is in refurbishable, rehabilitatable condition, and that should cost about a quarter as much as the more expensive cars. And it'll probably cost about a third as much as a mid-range priced car, because the battery prices are going to go down to under $10,000 for 100 kilowatt hours. And the solar charging will go down. It'll be far more economical within the next few years to switch the existing fleet, and the money won't go out of the community when you do that. So the money stays here instead of going to a factory in Europe or the East Coast or wherever.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Okay, are there any other public comment? Any other board member comments?
Yeah, it's just a statistical question. So the original mailing was a random sample. However, the respondents, right, because they decided to respond, and so that the sample would have been 2,300, 25,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't even. However, a selected few decided to respond.
Seven.
But so, does the randomness then get skewed?
People willing to respond.
Correct. Now, I know you talked about the normalization piece, and I forgot that part of my second statistics course. But I was just curious as to how much confidence we have. I mean, obviously, you have a confidence interval of 95%.
Yeah.
You can usually get a 95% confidence interval if you do about 400 people, just any, right? I mean, that gets you to if it's a random sample. Right? But in this case, it's a little different. So how much confidence do you have?
It's a good question. They try to make it appealing outside of who wants to take a survey, right? The sweepstakes prizes. And then I think the one way that, and this might be a better question for Heiner and partners, our survey partner. But you can look at year to year at what the numbers do. And generally, if you don't see a greater than 5% increase, then you're like, well, they're basically the same. But when there's a really big shift, sometimes we need to go, what's going on? And do I trust it? That, you know, I might ask you. That's what it is.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you first of all. The second one, listening to this, and I feel like I'm very simple and this thought that keeps. Yeah, that I feel like I'm inundated with PG&E's symbol. Whether it be on the envelope whenever they send me comes, or even my email, and it's like, are they really sending me things as often as I think? So I quickly just went through my email. I'm like, yes, PG&E sent me a thing about wildfire safety. Is there some way that we can inundate people with our logo there?
Do you mean email specifically or just in general?
Put a symbol on the envelopes where people get their bills. I think it's good.
Don't think we can do. We're talking about this campaign that's, you know, bigger, they could do broadcast, Americans, digital display, but there's, of course, it's what, you know, got people say in a way that resonates across both our service, you know, service territories. What's gonna really resonate? So we need to do some of that work to really understand how we want to show up for customers and how to say it. But the idea would be to start really communicating in a big way. So, and we do send emails with 200,000 list, you know, we do send out emails several times a month, but I think you're bigger than us. I know plenty of people who get those emails, don't know about us, we don't see them. They're, you know, they're invisible to you.
The account that I get the PG&E emails too, I very rarely check. And yet, I see it as it pops up, and I don't feel like I'm seeing PCE emails pop up for that inbox. So I just wanted to.
Let's make sure you're on the list. We do that, right?
Yeah, I just want to point out to everyone, we have a lot of work. As in 2 to 3 years when 9.4 and 9.6 kick in.
Yeah.
The sentiment on here didn't include the addition of the fact that it said, how do you feel about turning? It didn't say, how do you feel about paying the amount you have to pay? And so I just want to remind everyone, 9.4 and 9.6 is actually enforced by the cities. And so when that kicks in, all of your cities will be the enforcement mechanism for that. And everyone's gonna have to deal with that sentiment when it's being enforced. So
yeah,
just that's coming. It's like a wave. So we really need to focus some work there. Problems, I think they'd be even lower if they knew the cost associated with the question.
Okay, so other than everybody's gonna get a giant sticker. PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy, and when you put your lawn signs out, when you run for re-election, you're gonna also have a jar that says powered by Peninsula Clean Energy. So, you know, we have a lot of branding talent in this room and a lot of outreach in this room, so we're gonna all have to really work on that. And try to figure out how to, you know, use our own networks to hit this rate. So with that, we'll move on to item number 12, which is board member reports, if anybody has anything. Okay. Third.
Just trying to get into the habit of doing this, part of me said I hopefully something fun. In this case, the fun thing I have to say is that Pacific Coast Fog Fest will be the 23rd and 24th of the month, which I believe is before the next meeting. So a little art, a little drinks, some music, come to Pacifica. It's usually the sunniest day of the year. 23rd, 24th, come join us. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Along the same note, Tiger, I want to invite all of you to the 44th annual Palestine Culture Day happening September 9th in Boston City, the Youth Airline Park. It's a whole day event. So the people will be recognized at 3:30. A lot of music, a lot of instruments, a lot of dancing, culture. So both the all
Very.
South San Francisco, know that big House building on El Camino, we did a campus, library, parks and rec opening. October 28th, finally, right, and all electric, it's solar on the roof, so, you're all invited. There time? October, no.
You know what?
Because there will,
You know what we, Sean, I don't know if this is possible, but in our weekly newsletter, if people have like an opening like that, that's important, like an all electric, if we could just have like a community events little section where we pop all that in, Nelly?
Yeah.
We included one in this past week's newsletter, the community corner, and so yes, we have those to email them.
Yeah. That would be amazing. Thank you.
By Friday by close business Thursday.
Yeah. Very something.
Thank you. That'd be great.
All right, so we are pretty close, 8:34. Thank you all very much. Yay. Great for fun.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for